right. Make sure it's not an airbag leaking, not a suspension problem. I'll also make sure I have no puddles or leaks under the bus, such as motor oil, transmission, power steering, and antifreeze. Go to the driver's side of the bus. I'm gonna start with my horn. I'm gonna make sure it's tight and secure, not crack the damage. I'm gonna come down to the window. I'm gonna make sure the window is tight and secure, not crack the damage, no illegal stickers. I'm gonna start with my mirror, flat mirror. Make sure it's tight and secure, not crack the damage. I'm gonna check the mirror bracket. Make sure the mirror bracket is tight and secure, not crack the damage. I'm gonna unlatch this. I'm gonna check this signal light. Make sure it's tight and secure, not crack the damage. I'm gonna start with these signal lights up there and make sure it's tight and secure, not crack the damage. Amber in the front. I'm gonna come down, check my windshield, make sure my windshield is tight and secure, not crack the damage, no illegal stickers. Check my wiper blade, make sure my wiper blade is tight and secure and not dry rotted. My wiper arms, I'm gonna make sure my wiper arms are tight and secure and not crack the damage. My crossover mirror is tight and secure and not crack the damage. Crossover mirror bracket, tight and secure and not crack the damage. This signal light, make sure it's tight and secure. Turn signal, make sure it's tight and secure and not crack the damage. This light, gonna make sure it's tight and secure and not crack the damage. Gonna make sure my headlights are clean and visible, tight and secure and not crack the damage. I'm gonna come over to this side. I'm gonna check my tag, make sure it's tight and secure and all screws are present. So on this side, I'm gonna check this signal light, this mirror bracket, this mirror itself, this windshield, this wiper blade, this wiper arm, this turn signal, this crossover mirror bracket, this light, and these headlights. I want to check those things the same as I checked on that side. Then I'm going to pull this hood back, make sure it's not going too far forward, too far back. I'm going to put this yellow thing right here in place so it won't fall. I'm going to go left or right. I'm going to start with my power steering. I'm going to make sure my power steering reservoir is tight and secure, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. I'm going to start with this. I'm going to check the power steering dipstick. The way I check it is I pull it out, wipe it off, put it back in, pull it back out. Make sure it's at proper level. I'm going to check all these wires, hoses, and clamps and cup links. Make sure all these things are tight, secure, not cracked, damaged, no missing wires, no leaks in the hoses. I'm going to check my AC compressor. Make sure my AC compressor is tight, secure, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. I'm going to check this belt. I'm going to make sure my belt is tight, secure, not cracked, and not dry rotted. And when pulled by hand, should move no more than 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to check my radiator hose and clamps. Make sure that both of these things are tight, secure, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. I'm going to check the radiator itself. Make sure the radiator is tight, secure, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. I'm going to check my fan blades. Make sure my fan blades are tight, secure, no missing fan blades. I'm going to check my big hose and my big clamps. I'm going to make sure both of those things are tight, secure, and not cracked or damaged. I'm going to check my oil dipstick. Make sure the way I check it is, I check it the same as I check this dipstick. I'm going to check my transmission fluid dipstick. The way I check it is, I'll check it the same as I check both of these things, but with the engine on and in neutral. I'm going to check my power steering. Make sure my power steering is tight and secure and not cracked or damaged. I'm going to check these hoses and cup links. Make sure it's tight and secure, not cracked or damaged. I'm going to check my air compressor. Make sure my air compressor is tight and secure, not cracked or damaged or leaking. I'm going to check this make sure this oil cap is tight and secure, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. And the air compressor and the power steering are belt driven. Okay. Now I'm going to check my steering assembly. I'm going to check my Now I'm going to check my steering assembly. I'm going to check my steering rod. Make sure my steering rod is tight and secure, not cracked or damaged. I'm going to check my steering box. Make sure my steering box is tight and secure, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. I want to check my pitman arm. I want to make sure my pitman arm is tight and secure, not cracked or damaged. I want to make sure my nut and cotter pin is tight and secure, no missing pops. I want to check my drag link. Make sure my drag link is tight and secure, not cracked or damaged. I'm going to check my knuckle, nut, and cotter pin. I'm going to make sure both of those things are tight and secure and no missing pops. I want to check my tire rod. Make sure it's tight and secure, not cracked or damaged. I'm going to check my frame. Make sure my frame has no illegal wheels. It's tight and secure, not cracked or damaged. Now I'm going to check my suspension parts. I'm going to check my leaf spring hanger, my leaf spring, my U-bolts. I'm going to make sure all those things are tight and secure, not cracked or damaged. I'm going to make sure my leaf spring is not shifted. I want to check my shocks. Make sure my shocks are tight and secure, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. Now I'm going to check my brake assembly. I'm going to check all my brake hoses, clamps, and couplings. Make sure they are tight and secure, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. I'm going to check my brake chamber. Make sure my brake chamber is tight and secure, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. I'm going to check my slack adjuster. Make sure my slack adjuster has no missing spots. It's tight and secure, not cracked or damaged. The angle between the push rod and the adjuster arm is a little more than 90 degrees with the brakes released, less than 90 degrees with the brakes applied, and when pulled by hand should move no more than 1 inch with the brakes released. We're gonna check the top of this tire. Make sure it's evenly worn. No less than 432 tread depth. No mixed bias or radius tires on the front. I'm also gonna make sure it's not recapped or regrooved. Gonna check the side of the tire. Make sure there's no illegal patches, no bubbles, no cuts. I'm gonna check my bead. Make sure my bead is tight and secure, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. I'm gonna check my rim. Make sure my rim is tight and secure, not cracked or damaged, no illegal wheels. I'm gonna check all these lug nuts. Make sure all these lug nuts are tight and secure. They are present. No looseness indicating shininess or rust. I'm gonna check my oil hub. Make sure my oil hub is tight and secure, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. My valve stem, I'm gonna make sure the cap is on tight, it's tight and secure, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. If I can see my brake drum, I will make sure my brake drum has no illegal wheels, it's tight and secure, not cracked or damaged. And I will also make sure my brake liners are not dangerously worn thin. If I had a rubber mallet, I would strike the tire. If it bounces off, that means it has enough air. If it sticks, I will need to have air in through the air valve. I will check my mud flap, make sure my mud flaps are not dragging and not touching the tire. Now on this side, I would check my radiator reservoir. I will make sure it's tight and secure, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. I also will make sure the cap is on tight. And the way I can check it is make sure the cap is cool. I will check these hoses and clamps and make sure they are tight and secure, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. I would check my windshield wiper reservoir. I will make sure the cap is on tight, it's tight and secure, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. I would check my air filter. Make sure my air filter is tight and secure, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. I would check my sight glass. This indicates if the air filter is clean or dirty. I would check all these hoses, clamps, and couplings the same as I checked on that side. I would check my alternator and my alternator wires. I will make sure it's properly mounted, tight and secure, not cracked or damaged. I would check my water pump. I will make sure my water pump is tight and secure, not cracked or damaged. The water pump and the alternator are belt driven. I would check this belt. I would make sure this belt is tight and secure and not cracked and not dry rotted. And when pulled by hand, should move no more than 3/4 of an inch. On this side, I would check my frame, my suspension parts, my brake assembly parts, my wheel parts, and my rim assembly parts, the same as I checked on that side. And also the mud flaps, the same as I checked on that side. I'm gonna close it up now. I'm gonna start on this side. I would check now. I would check this door, make sure it opens and closes without binding. This door opens and closes without binding. I would check this door windows, make sure it's tight and secure and no illegal stickers. I would check all these windows, make sure they are tight and secure, not cracked, damaged, no illegal stickers. I would check this signal light, make sure it's tight and secure, all screws are present, not cracked or damaged. If this bus had an exhaust system, a drive shaft and exhaust, I would check both of those things, make sure they are tight and secure, not cracked or damaged. I would check this light, make sure this is tight and secure, not cracked or damaged, and all screws are present. All right. Now I would check the rear tires. If I could see my frame, I would check my frame, make sure my frame is tight, secure, not cracked, damaged, no illegal wheels. I would check my suspension parts, such as my leaf spring hanger, my leaf spring, and my U-bolts. I would make sure all those things are tight, secure, not cracked or damaged. I would make sure the leaf spring is not shifted. I would make sure the U-bolts are holding up the leaf spring. I would check my brake assembly. If I could see my brake assembly, I would check the brake chamber, the brake hoses, clamps, and couplings. Make sure all those things are tight, secure, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. I got it. I will check my slack adjuster. I will make sure my slack adjuster is tight and secure, not cracked, damaged, no missing parts. The angle between the push rod and the adjuster arm is a little more than 90 degrees with the brakes released, less than 90 degrees with the brakes applied, and when pulled by hand should move no more than 1 inch with the brakes released. If this bus had an airbag and torsion bar, I will make sure the airbag is tight and secure, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. I will make sure the torsion bar is holding up the airbag up tight. Alright, I would check the top of these tires. These tires, the tread depth should be no more than 232. 232. I would check the side of the tire, make sure the side of the tire is no cuts, no illegal width, no illegal patches, no bubbles. I would check the bead, make sure the bead is tight and secure, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. I would check the rim, no illegal wear is tight and secure, not cracked or damaged. I would check all the lug nuts, make sure all the lug nuts are present, tight and secure, no rust, no shinies indicating any looseness. This is the axle hub. I would check this axle hub, make sure the axle hub is tight and secure, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. I would check my valve stem, make sure the cap is on tight, it's tight and secure, not cracked or damaged. If I can see my brake drum, I'll make sure my brake drum has no illegal wheels, it's tight and secure, not cracked or damaged. If I can see my brake liner, I'll make sure my brake liner is tight and secure, and not dangerously worn thin. These tires are butt rims. They should be 4 inches apart. If I can see, I will check in between and make sure there's no debris such as rocks, twigs, or sticks or anything. I will check this mud flap. Make sure my mud flap is not dragging and is not touching the tire. I would check this fuel door. Make sure this fuel door opens and closes without binding. I would make sure the fuel cap is on tight and the hoses are connected on tight. Make sure those things are tight, secure, not cracked, damaged, or leaking. I will close this door and I also would check under for any fuel that's not leaking. I would check this reflector light. Make sure this is tight, secure, not cracked or damaged. I would check this light up here. Make sure it's tight, secure, not cracked or damaged, and it's red in color. I would check those clearance lights. Make sure it's tight, secure, not cracked, damaged, or broken. Red in the back, amber in the front. I would check all these windows. Make sure it's tight, secure, not cracked, damaged, no illegal stickers. I would check this door from the inside. I would check my turn signal, my brake light, my reverse light, my tag light, my reflector. I would make sure all those things are tight, secure, not cracked or damaged. I would check my exhaust. I would make sure my exhaust is tight and secure, not cracked or damaged, and no excessive carbon sub is leaking. I would check my tag. I would make sure my tag is up to date, it's tight and secure, not cracked, damaged, and no missing screws. I would check my reverse light, my brake light, my turn signal, my reflector, my tail light. I would check those things the same as I checked on that side. On this side, I would check both my clearance lights, all these windows, the same as I checked on that side. On this side, I would check my tire. On this side, I would check my frame, my suspension parts, my brake assembly, my tire assembly, my rim assembly, the same as I checked on the other side. Now I'm gonna check my battery door. Make sure this battery door opens and closes without binding. I would check my battery itself, make sure it's tight, secure, and not cracked, damaged. I would check the battery hold down the cables. I'll make sure all those things are connected, properly mounted, and no excessive corrosion. All right. I would check this door light. Make sure this door light is tight, secure, not cracked or damaged. No missing screws. I would check my stairway. I would make sure my stairway is tight, secure to the frame, and nothing that could trip my passengers. I would check these handrails. Make sure these handrails are tight, secure to the frame. I would check these handrails. Make sure these handrails are tight, secure to the frame. I would check these seat positions. Make sure these seat positions is tight, secure to the frame. I would make sure my seat belts are working properly. I would check all these windows on this side, make sure y'all tight and secure, not cracked or damaged, no illegal sticks. I would check this emergency exit. The way I check it is I pull it down, push it out, pull it back up. I would check this emergency exit. The way I check it is I push it up, pull it back down. I would check these handrails, make sure it's tight and secure to the frame. I would proceed to walk to the back. Check my emergency door, make sure it opens and closes without binding and the noise comes on. The noise comes on. I would turn around. I would check this emergency exit the same as I checked out. I would check all my interior lights, make sure they are tight, secure, no missing screws, not cracked or damaged. I would check all these windows the same as I checked on that side. I would check all these emergency exits the same as I checked out on that side. I would check all my seats and seat belts the same as I checked out. Proceed to walk up. As I'm walking up, I would check my standee line, make sure it's 2 inches wide and visible to the passengers. I would check my emergency equipment, my first aid kit, my warning device, my fire extinguisher. My fire extinguisher is properly mounted, charged to the green with the pin in the middle. If this bus had circuit breakers, I would have extra fuses. I would check this seat, make sure it's tight secured to the frame. I would check my seat belt, make sure my seat belt is working properly. My seat belt is working properly. I would check this window, driver's side, make sure it's open and closed without binding. I would check this flat mat, make sure it's adjusted to me. I would check that crossover mirror and make sure it's adjusted to me. I would check my right crossover mirror, make sure it's adjusted to me. I would check this right flat mirror, make sure it's adjusted to me. And I would check this inside mirror, make sure it's adjusted to me so I can see the passengers. And the passengers can see me. Start the bus up. I would check all my interior lights, make sure all my interior lights are working. All my interior lights are working properly. I will make sure this door opens and closes without binding. It opens and closes without binding from the inside. I will make sure my heating defrost is working properly. My heating defrost is working properly. Make sure my windshield wipers are working properly. It's working properly. I'll check all my gauges on the dash to make sure they are working properly. My engine tip is rising to the proper level. My front and rear air gauges are rising to the proper level. My front meter is rising to the proper level. My engine oil is rising to the proper level. My amp gauge is rising to the proper level. My fuel gauge is rising to the proper level. I have enough fuel to get through the trip. My headlights are working on the dash. My left turn signal is working on the dash. My right turn signal is working on the dash. My four-ways are working on the dash. My headlights are working on the dash. My stern wheel should be 2 inches, 10 degrees of play before the front wheel starts to turn. My horn is working on the dash. This horn is working on the dash. Now I will proceed to do a parking brake test. My parking brake is already engaged. I'm going to change the gears into reverse. I'm going to give it pedal. Hold. I'm going to change the gears into drive. I'm going to give it pedal. Hold. I'm going to put it back in neutral. Now I'm going to do a service brake test. I'm going to put my foot on the service brake first. I'm going to push in the parking brake. I'm going to change the gears to reverse. It's holding. I'm going to change the gears to drive. It's holding. I'm going to put it back in neutral. Put the parking brake back out. My service brakes and parking brakes both are working on the bus. Now I'm going to do an air brake test. Just to remind you, my rear wheels are chopped. My air pressures are rising to the proper level, which is 100 to 120 PSI. I'm going to turn my bus off. I'm going to turn the bus into the on position. I'm going to push in the parking brake. I'm going to put my foot on the service brake for 60 seconds. Within that 60 seconds, I should lose no more than 3 PSI. Can you time me, please? When those 60 seconds are up, I'm going to fan my service brake down to 60 PSI and below. At that moment, my front and rear air gauge temperatures warning lights will come on. After that, I will continue to fan my service brake down to 40 to 20 PSI. At that moment, my parking brake will pop out. Good to go? Yeah. All right, gotcha.
Time.
Fanning my service brake down to 60 PSI and below. Both of my warning lights came on. Now I'm going to continue to fan the service brake down to 40 to 20 PSI and below. my parking brake popped out. Now I'm going to start the bus up. I'm going to let the pressure rise to 60 psi and above, so both my front and rear warning lights goes off. After that, I'm going to continue to let the pressure rise to the proper level, 100 to 120 psi. I'm going to start the bus up now. My warning lights went off. It has reached its proper level. That concludes my air brake test, my pre-trip. Can you help me with that stereo lights, please? That completes my pre-trip.